The 2012 U.S. presidential election is now one for the history books. A look back at the campaign shows religious values taking a backseat to economic concerns, as neither party really focused on faith.
But that doesn't mean that religion wasn't important to the race. Researchers say young voters, including young religious voters, were key to re-electing President Obama. On assignments, Rebecca Ward talked with VOA's Jerome Socolovsky about his report on the role of U.S. religious voters.
At the Public Religion Research Institute, Dan Cox studies the role that faith played for the electorate at large.
Although it definitely played a secondary role, or we might even say a supporting role to the economy and jobs, it was definitely important, I think if we look at it more of a chapter in a larger story that's unfolding. And what I mean here is like the dramatically changing religious landscape.
This morning, in the name of Jesus Christ,
religious conservatives were decisive in past Republican victories and are still an important part of the party's base. But 1 in 5 Americans, according to a recent poll, do not identify with a specific religion, and this group is predominantly young. While many are still deeply spiritual, they lean toward the Democratic Party and tend to be socially liberal, says Cox.
Although they still don't turn out as in high numbers as other groups, so they're only about 12% of voters in 2012. But they are making a difference.
Cox says they were crucial in passing ballot measures in several states that favored legalization of marijuana and same-sex marriage.
The story really is one of religion and sort of religion and politics being less and less important in American elections. And in this election, what we saw is a lot of voters, a lot of young voters, who were turned off by that kind of mix of religion and politics, and actually did not vote in favor of candidates who had very kind of conservative religious views on women, on abortion. So what we saw in this election also were 3 landmark ballot initiatives, all supporting the legalization of same-sex marriage. And we saw 2 candidates who had come out with very strong anti-abortion statements who were actually not voted into office.
And that's kind of interesting because the Republicans sometimes lean on the evangelical vote, and these would be issues that they would be interested in. Yet those referendums and those candidates didn't necessarily bring out that vote.
Right. In the past, what we've seen is the evangelical vote being very important for Republican candidates. Decisive in the case of George Bush, the second George Bush, and also helping Ronald Reagan in the last century.
And you told me something interesting. There are 2 firsts, or 2, I would say, religious firsts for Congress.
Right. I mean, what's coming out is a very kind of plural, multicultural America here, and we have 2 firsts, both from Hawaii, of the first Hindu Congresswoman or first Hindu representative in Congress, and we also have the first Buddhist elected to the U.S. Senate from Hawaii as well.
That's interesting. This election, I mean, obviously, Mitt Romney, since the founder Joseph Smith, which I just learned from reading your report, is the first Mormon to run for president since 18-something. And so what did it mean for Mormonism, if anything?
Right. Yeah, I don't think this election is really about how much does the Mormon vote count, because yes, most of them did vote for Mitt Romney, as one would expect. I think what's interesting to come out of this election is that even though Mitt Romney lost, Mormonism in a way won. It's marked their acceptance into American society. Americans now are not as quick to think that, oh, their beliefs are so weird or they're nutcases. They really are Americans. People are finally realizing that, seeing that, and embracing them. And Mormons are less defensive about who they are and what they believe as well.
And our thanks to Jerome Socolovsky, who covers religion for VOA here in Washington.